Hi, everyone. Today's mini lesson is all about time. It's all about how you're going to control time inside your narrative. It's very important to consider how you're going to structure your narrative. Are you going to start with the action? Are you going to tell it in straight chronological order? Or are you going to try to build suspense with time? Are you going to try to do flashbacks, foreshadowing, all of those things? We're going to examine a model of the way that Harper Lee, the author of To Kill a Mockingbird, used time to create suspense. The way that she slows time down and then speeds time up in order to give more oomph to her story. Then I want you to consider what is appropriate for your story. Should you begin with the action? Is there a place where you need to slow down the action with description? Giving it some sort of body and setting. You need to be deliberate with everything you do in your story. Remember, there are no actions in fiction, and when you're the writer, you control what the reader takes in. So you want to use that control as much as you possibly can. This is an excerpt from To Kill a Mockingbird. And in this scene, a rabid dog is making its way up the road. This is set in the 1920s Depression era, or actually 1930s Depression in the rural South in Alabama. And the dog appears to be rabid, and there's no cure for rabies. So if you're bitten by a rabid dog, it's pretty much fatal. And it was a really bad, terrible kind of death. So Scout and Jim's father has stepped into the street to face the rabid dog, taking aim with a gun the children didn't even know he could shoot. And so here is the place. I want you to notice how Harper Lee handles time. Tim Johnson reached the side street that ran in front of the Radley place, and what remained of his poor mind— oh, Tim Johnson is the dog, y'all. Let me start again. Tim Johnson reached the side street that ran in front of the Radley place, and what remained of his poor mind made him pause and seem to consider which road he would take. He made a few hesitant steps and stopped in front of the Radley gate. Then he tried to turn around, but was having difficulty. Atticus said, "He's within range, Heck. You'd better get him before he goes down the side street. Lord knows who's around the corner. Go inside, Cal." Calpurnia opened the screen door, latched it behind her, then unlatched it, and held on to the hook. She tried to block Jim and me with her body, but we looked out from beneath her arms. "Take him, Mr. Finch." Mr. Tate handed the rifle to Atticus. Jim and I nearly fainted. "Don't waste time, Heck," said Atticus. "Go on." "Mr. Finch, this is a one-shot job." Atticus shook his head vehemently. "Don't just stand there, Heck. He won't wait all day for you." "For God's sake, Mr. Finch, look where he is. Miss, and you'll go straight into the Radley house. I can't shoot that well, and you know it." "I haven't shot a gun in 30 years. Mr. Tate almost threw the rifle at Atticus. "I'd feel mighty comfortable if you did now," he said. In a fog, Jim and I watched our father take the gun and walk out into the middle of the street. He walked quickly, but I thought he moved like an underwater swimmer. Time had slowed to a nauseating crawl. When Atticus raised his glasses, Calpurnia murmured, "Sweet Jesus, help him," and put her hands on her cheeks. Atticus pushed his glasses to his forehead. They slipped down, and he dropped them in the street. In the silence, I heard them crack. Atticus rubbed his eyes and chin. We saw him blink hard. In front of the Radley gate, Tim Johnson had made up what was left of his mind. He had finally turned himself around to pursue his original course up our street. He made 2 steps forward, then stopped and raised his head. We saw his body go rigid. With movements so swift they seemed simultaneous, Atticus's hand yanked a ball, tipped lever, and brought the gun to his shoulder. The rifle cracked. Tim Johnson leaped, flopped over, and crumpled on the sidewalk in a brown and white heap. He didn't know what hit him. Mr. Tate jumped off the porch and ran to the Radley place. He stopped in front of the dog, squatted, turned around, and tapped his finger on the forehead above his left eye. "You were a little to the right, Mr. Finch," he called. What I wanted you to notice is before he picked up the gun, Harper Lee creates suspense because she kind of goes up into the fog. She and Jim watched the father take the gun and walk out into the middle of the street. She talked about time slowing to a nauseating crawl. She has Calpurnia say, "Sweet Jesus, help him." Then we have Atticus pushing his glasses on his forehead and cracking on the ground. All of this time, Harper Lee could have just said, "Atticus put the gun up and shot the dog," and been done with it. But instead, she takes her time, which builds suspense. It makes us want to know what happens next. Then, when the moment comes for actual action, it goes fast. With movements so swift they seem simultaneous, Atticus's hand yanked a ball-tipped lever and brought the gun to his shoulder. The rifle cracked. Tim Johnson leaped, flopped over, and crumpled on the sidewalk in a brown and white heap. Sort of short, choppy sentences to make it go fast. This is something you can also do in your writing. You're the boss. You decide how fast or slow you want everything to go. Do you need to slow down the time to make it more exciting for your reader, or do you need to speed things up so that your reader feels the impact of what you're saying? While you're working on your draft, please consider these ideas about time, and remember that is one of the grading criteria on your rubric.